What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Collective Show. I'm your host, Dan.
I'm Zach.
And today we have...
Jake.
Jake is one of our video editors and collaborators on the Strix Media team. And we have another special guest here. How many podcasts is this week?
This week?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Like 4, 5?
Well, it's another special guest, all right? One of millions. What's up, Sydney?
Hey, how's it going?
Thanks so much for taking out the time. So let's start off with, if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strix Media NJ. Check out our website, www.strixmedia.com. If you are a creator in the New Jersey, New York City area, be sure to join our Facebook group, NJ/NYC Creative Collective. It's a Facebook group where you can collaborate, meet up with people, get constructive criticism, sell gear, hire people for other gigs. It's a really great place to meet people that are like-minded. Also, if you could hit that subscribe button if you're listening to us on any type of podcast platform, as well if you're on Apple Podcasts, write us a review. Let us know how we're doing. If we suck, if we're awesome, if you love hearing our beautiful voices, and maybe who you want to hear next on the podcast.
I hate hearing my own voice.
Yeah.
You've got a great radio voice.
Thank you. And also, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, comment #live, because that knows. That lets us know if you're watching. And then also, if you have any questions for our guest, feel free to leave them in the comments, and then we'll get them answered by the end of the show. So let's get into it.
Hell yeah. And by the way, we also have our Twitch streamers up there. There's like 3 of you. We appreciate your love. Keep staying with us. We're going to hopefully grow with you as you like our shit. Anyway.
All right. Ready? Hold on.
Boom.
Let's get it rocking.
All right.
What's going on, Sydney?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. All right. So tell everyone who you are and what you do.
So my name is Sydney Prusso, and I'm a lettering and mural artist from New Jersey.
Awesome. So, so let's kick it off with like your backstory. Let's talk a little bit about kind of how you got into art and what led you there.
Totally. So taking you way back to probably when I was like 12, kind of was always drawing, always feeling, being a creative kid. And I started drawing more often, more frequently. And after I started doing it on a more consistent basis, it's probably about when I was probably 14. And then at that point, it was kind of like people started pointing out like, hey, Sid, like, this is like good. Like, are you going to like do something with this? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm 14. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it kind of dominoed from there. I started in high school going to more after school workshops and kind of participating more
And like art programs and stuff.
Yeah, more arts programs, and like that was a key point to like forming that that part of my career going into figuring out what I wanted to do.
When you were in school, did you have like a particular thing that you were doodling or drawing? Like what was your style?
I think a lot of artists will relate to this, but I started drawing eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like real life like eyeballs, like detailed.
Yeah, like
because I always tried doing that.
Eyeballs,
I could
yeah.
never
First
get.
thing to go to.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why. I think that's something that a lot of artists can relate to is just drawing a hyper realistic eyeball. Like just like I'm gonna draw this eye.
Or hands.
Yeah,
Eyes
hands.
and hands.
I can't
was
do
more
hands for
forced,
shit.
Though hands was like the art teacher wanted you to like draw a bunch of your hands doing that, and you're like,
Yeah, they were hard.
yeah. But yeah, so I think I was probably like any other kid going into college, though. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I was
Sure.
kind of like, I have lots of different interests. Like I really liked psychology. Like maybe I wanted to go into that, but there was this kind of pull towards the creative where I was like, I should probably do something with this talent that I have. So that was kind of the formative years for that.
Sure.
Let's see, going into college though, because I kind of grew up with this mindset where, and this is like a very like restrictive and outdated kind of mindset to think now that I look back, but that it was like if you were an artist, you couldn't make a living on your own like that. You'd become that starving
That's
artist trope,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so that was definitely not a very healthy thing to be thinking, but it's the mindset that I had at that time. So I was kind of like, all right, I will. What can I do? Like, I'll do graphic design. Like that's what I'll go into school for. So I ended up applying to MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, for graphic design. I got in, and then I went to MICA for graphic design. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, did you have to give them like a portfolio of like things you worked on? Because I feel like the creative, like applying for something like that, you have to show them
Yeah,
what you
so
got, kind of.
my portfolio was mostly fine art, so it was mostly a lot of like my early work is a lot of pastel drawings and paintings, which is really different than what I do now. So a lot of it's like landscapes or people portraits, but I think mostly landscapes or sunsets or things like that with
Okay.
pastels. And so I submitted that along with, I had like kind of a very small graphic design portfolio that I had done. I had made in like a high school graphic design class.
Sure.
It was a really small one. I just had like a couple of pieces. But actually looking back on those couple of pieces, they were typography focused, which is really interesting for me to look back on now. But yeah, so I had to submit a portfolio, and that's kind of what it was filled with.
Okay, cool. So what did school look like for you? Like, did you get something out of it? Was it worth it? And then, what did that lead you to afterward?
Sure. So the first year of, if you go to an art school, they have you do this thing called foundation year. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that.
I went to art school, but not longer than 2 weeks.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So my
Did you
foundation week.
foundations?
Yeah.
Well, I walked in and they're like, "Oh, like you're gonna learn the color wheel." I'm like, I learned the color wheel when I was 7 and like took art classes for fun. Like,
Yeah.
why are we learning this? I felt like it was like every other normal college where they're like, well, no, it's the opposite. You go to normal college, like, oh, you've taken math before? No problem. You're in like calculus now. And it's like, oh, I can't like tell you that I know the art, the color wheel. Like,
That's exactly how I kind of felt too.
it sucked.
going into it.
And I was such a hard-headed asshole that I just didn't get like straight A's and shut the fuck up.
I find that art schools make you start at the basis so everyone's equal and push you forward from that.
Yeah,
But
they
it
definitely
sucks
try
if
to do that.
it sucks if you're ahead and then you're like learning basic level
Yeah.
1 theory.
Well, do they
For
give you
sure.
any kind of like assessment to see like, okay, you already know so much, like you can skip these few classes?
I think there were a couple, but they didn't make it apparent enough that you could take them. So I still ended up taking a lot
Got
of
it.
the most basic classes because, like, for some reason they weren't like, oh, you sign up here to pass this class and like go forward. But yeah, so I ended up taking a lot of the more basic stuff, and then they want you to kind of hone your fine art skills a lot in your foundation year as well. And at the time, I was like, same as what you're saying, kind of like, oh, this is dumb. Like, I think I know what I want to do. Like, I want to just, get really good at graphic design, graduate, get an in-house design job, and make money. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what I did do. But we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, so definitely so that was the first year, foundation year, and then the next 3 years is more heavily graphic design focused. But they do, I think like a year mostly focused on branding, and then another year mostly focused on motion graphics. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the last year is kind of combining all of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you worked for an agency for some time in New York.
Yes. I did.
Okay. So can you go into like how you went about getting that job? Was it fresh out of college? Did you intern anywhere first? And like what that looked like?
Sure. So I was the type of person that always had a job like all throughout college. So whether it was like being a hostess at restaurants, or I had a couple internships that I was juggling at that time. So I was doing, I started with an internship with a company or a nonprofit called Arts by the People. And that's a local nonprofit in Morristown that I still work with from time to time.
Cool.
And the business that actually helped me to get into all those workshops in high school. So that was like highly beneficial to be a part of. So I ended up interning with them for a couple years. And then I eventually got my internship with a company called Imri, which was my first job that I ended up taking right out of college. So that internship lasted about, I want to say, probably 2 years. And it was just kind of like on the side while I was taking classes. Like it was like, okay, on Thursdays and Fridays, you come to our office and we do, and then you have class like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Okay, so what did that job look like? What like what were you doing? You said you had got a background in branding and like marketing. What kind of things were you? What kind of projects? I know you can't sometimes name names and all that good stuff, but
yeah.
what about the ideas of what you're working on?
For sure. So the first stuff that I was working on was mostly healthcare focused, although I did work on some other projects that involved like lots of sports, so like NFL, NBA, like all that kind of stuff as well, travelers, golf, and then kind of like other random like John Deere, stuff like that. But I ended up kind of focusing on the healthcare aspect, and then focusing on creating social content for those brands.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what I ended up kind of doing. And that involved using motion graphics and kind of like implementing their brands.
Interesting.
What kind of software did you use to do that kind of stuff, like After Effects?
Oh yeah, After Effects. A lot more Photoshop than I thought I would ever need to use, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Cool.
So, did you like that job? Was it good?
I did, and it was kind of like at first, okay, so it was the perfect scenario really, where it was like right out of college, everything that I wanted all coming to me at once, and it was perfect. And it was actually with two of my best friends from college, my roommates, ended up getting the same job.
What?
Yeah, and
That's
we ended up,
amazing.
I know, right? Like it was the perfect situation. I literally could not complain. It was awesome. But then over time, it kind of like this kind of feeling started coming up where I was like that newness and that excitingness and like excitingness, is that a word? Started kind of like
Branded.
Yeah, branded. Started kind of like it started wearing off a little bit, and what I think made it apparent to me was actually the contrast between myself and my friends that were working with me, having they had done similar majors, graphic design and illustration. They were happy and they were feeling like fulfilled. And I was like kind of starting to drift away from that feeling of feeling like creatively fulfilled. And I was kind of like, okay, like from time to time finding myself thinking like, this is it.
The job became a job.
Yeah, it became a job, but also like the contrast of people who actually still enjoyed it thoroughly. And I was kind of like, am I supposed to feel that way? Like,
So you kind of almost felt out of place. Like the passion wasn't
Yeah.
there, that honeymoon phase.
Mhm.
How long were you there before like you kind of felt that?
So before I felt that, it was probably not even that long. It was probably 6 months before I really accepted that feeling. And then a year.
That's not that long.
No, really not that long. And then a year before I was kind of like, I need to make moves because this is not the right thing that I should be feeling.
Interesting. So that was the point where you're like, this is not quite for me.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a turning point.
Can I ask, was there anything in the job that was also kind of like like anything in a, well, you don't have to talk about like contracts or anything, but was there anything there that was like, they would take like ownership of certain works that like you couldn't then put in a portfolio or anything like that? Or like,
Oh, good question. I like that.
like anything that from the job perspective where it's just like, this isn't letting me grow, or I don't have enough free time to kind of like
Yeah.
do things that I want to do?
I think with portfolio stuff like that, they kind of, you can put the stuff out on your portfolio that's out on like social media or
Right,
out in real
okay.
life. So there's stuff that I did while I was there that still hasn't come out and might never come out. So like I
Ah.
think there's a limiting factor with that as well, having like done a lot of work that might never be seen. But again, like the experience was a great one to have in my pocket.
Sure.
And it seems like a really like a high level, agency to be working for. So I'm sure you got to work on a lot of cool projects.
Oh yeah. And that was the other part that was kind of concerning me about why I was like not feeling happy too, is because like on paper, I was doing everything right. Like everything was good. Like I was kind of like rising up in the ranks like pretty quickly and like, getting promotions, getting raises. And I was like, but it's still not enough. Like something needs to change if that's still not enough.
Sure. Was there a particular moment when you realized that this was no longer for you and you had to kind of make that jump?
I think the moment was when I realized there was other options. So they don't, teach you in school how to like create your own job. They teach you how to get a job. And so that's what I knew and that's what I thought was the option. And so when I kind of started, and I'll say Instagram has its pros and cons, but one of the pros for me was being able to see so many other creatives out in the world and working and talking about what they're doing and being like, oh, they're doing something like totally different and on their own terms. And that seems like something I might be more interested in. So I think that turning point was like actually seeing what I wanted represented by others.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
So can you talk a little bit about where you are now and how that kind of transitioned into what you're doing now and kind of like the business that you're building?
Yeah, like kind of like
So-
how that started.
Yeah.
For sure. So I left my job back in September, 6 months ago. Whatever it was 6 months.
Wow, that's fairly recent.
Yeah, fairly recent. So all of this is super brand new for me.
That's awesome.
Really
Is it
kind
scary?
of. Yeah, every day.
Are you scared?
All the time. I'm terrified now. It's fun. Like I said, I kind of feel like Phineas and Ferb, just kind of like taking everything day by day. Like, yeah. What are we gonna do today? So I left my job about 6 months ago. The first 4 months were really what I ended up doing was investing in a class that I took, and that was about business for creatives. And so I spent part of my time taking that class, part of my time working on client work, and then the other part of my time kind of working on creating the work that I wanted to get hired to do. So since I was like shifting gears and changing what I wanted to do, like I didn't necessarily have a portfolio that supported exactly what I wanted out of my career from my experience, which was, not so much, but like I wanted to show more than what I had. So
Sure.
I spent those 4 months doing the class, client work, and then beefing up the portfolio with things.
So what kind of did you have clients or like a background like people you were working with before you left that job?
I had nothing that would like sustain,
An actual
a
living.
career.
Yeah.
But like, they say like the advice that was given was, save up, 6 months of living expenses. And I did that and still ended up living with my parents anyway, just because I'm like, I'm not going to live on the street, guys.
I know that this is kind of like a big thing, is like so many artists and creative come out and they immediately expect like money and returns on their work. But so much of like getting more work is just doing free work for clients and building connections and building that portfolio. Did you find that like you were kind of like, there was a huge portfolio building process and kind of that you had to like do things at discounted prices and stuff to kind of really get to more of the next
Yeah.
level?
So there's definitely an interesting push and pull with that. I kind of put my foot down with that because I had heard so many horror stories about like, people taking jobs that really led them down the wrong path when the whole point why they shifted gears was to go down a different path. So I wasn't taking on any new jobs that were less than ideal, but I was kind of keeping the ones that I had just to not lose those connections. But I had saved up enough that I was able to like say no to those less than ideal jobs.
That's cool. Did you know what kind of work you wanted to get into creating? Like how did you find what you really liked? Like how did you really find like your passion and what kind of art?
Well, quick question.
Yeah.
What was the class that you took?
So it was called Freelance 101, and it was a class put out by this woman called Molly Jakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Cool.
totally.
So what was the question again? Sorry.
Wow.
Fucked you up.
Okay, Jesus Christ.
My
Um,
bad.
How did you know the kind of work you wanted to get into? So you said you wanted to kind of build up a different side of your portfolio that was focused on a specific kind of art.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find that, and how did you know you were passionate about that particular kind?
So I have to go back a little bit. So
Okay. Back in time.
So I told you like my beginnings was kind of more fine arts, working with my hands more, and I think that's kind of what I was missing from working in an in-house design agency where I was kind of like just on the computer 24/7 working on content creation, and I wanted that kind of like back and forth of like, I'll be on the computer designing, be on my iPad, but then the other half of like I want to work with my hands more. Like it feels really
You
fulfilling.
want to touch something physically and
Yeah,
like
like,
be involved.
Have a
and,
paintbrush
yeah.
and like paint something, like, and I want to see it big, and I want it to be mine, So I had to kind of think about how I was going to bridge like a highly technical and like online kind of, how do I say this, like
digital.
digital kind of portfolio with something that was going to be more hands-on.
Sure.
And so I thought the perfect way to do that was that I was seeing a lot of these lettering artists. So I'll get into this, but I've been getting into a lot of lettering, and I saw a bunch of these lettering artists also getting into murals. And so I thought that would be the perfect way to bridge that gap for me of working with my hands.
Interesting. Now, how did you go about starting to get those projects? And did you start like in studio, or did you go to a wall somewhere and just fucking paint it?
So my first
Banksy.
like yeah. No, I'm actually him. Yeah.
If you are, honestly, wouldn't be
Custom Banksy
surprised.
So a lot of the stuff that I have on my Instagram and on my portfolio right now are those mock-ups that I said I've been kind of working on for those 4 months to kind of like, make the work you want to get hired to do. But I do have the first one that I did, or the first like official mural that I did, was for the agency that I used to work for. And I had volunteered myself to kind of like, they had this event coming up called Unblush, and it was for a pharma company that we'd been doing some branding for, and they had this big event coming up, and they were like, oh, we kind of want to do something for this space. We're not sure what. And I was like, oh, like I'll do a mural. And they were like, oh, cool. All right. Can you like do it in 3 days? And like, like all that. I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. Cool. So
When you do murals, is it hard to find walls to paint on? Like, is it hard to get people to give you a wall?
Thus far, yes, but it's finally starting to kind of come together. But yeah, I would say it is. Yeah, it is. That outdoor space is much harder because I'm pretty sure the regulations in Morristown actually has like some pretty hefty regulations on outdoor wall art.
Yeah, they hate art here.
Yeah, they
hate
just don't
it.
want it. Yeah.
They're like, do you play cover songs? No. Oh, okay. You can't play here.
Yeah, no.
If you don't play cover songs, and we hate art. It's terrible. Keep it out of our town. Only boat shoes here.
Yeah, and Revolutionary War themed things.
Yeah, George Washington all the way.
Yeah.
You can only paint if it's George Washington.
From 1775. So I was gonna ask, how did you go about like okay, so you kind of volunteered yourself. You say, hey, I'm gonna do this mural for you.
Yep.
Did you have an idea in the back of your head with like what you wanted to do? Did they give you direction? Was it more creative freedom? What that look like?
So I'd been working on the branding for this brand for about a year at that point. So I knew that brand front and back. So I already knew what they were going to be looking for. So I pitched a couple ideas, and they ended up picking one of them, and basically from there just kind of executed that one in the time frame that they needed.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah. The design was probably 2 days that it took to create the design, but then the actual application of the mural I think was 2 or 3 days. Yeah.
Wow.
To be like used and like taken in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did they erase it?
So it was a temporary event, so eventually it got taken down. Yeah,
damn.
like
So
that,
my
like
heart
the
hurts.
second day.
They
yeah.
can't like sell like put it on a temporary wall that you can then sell or something.
I don't know. Well, it was actually, it wasn't on a wall. It was this weird kind of like structure that they had built out of mirrors.
Out of mirrors.
Yeah, so it was a big box. It looked like a trailer kind of, but like the outside was mirrors. And so I had to do the mural on top of the mirrors, which was extremely difficult because you can't do any of the typical mural tricks where you kind of like, mural artists either do gridding or they do projection or you just have to freehand if it's on a mirror.
Wow. Now, was it a big piece? Like, how big are we talking here?
Probably, I would say 10 feet by 10 feet.
Wow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how I'm always curious about like the logistics of like doing a 10-foot by 10-foot piece.
Yeah.
Like, do you just start in a corner? Do you just kind of outline the whole thing as you go and then slowly fade in, or like you just chunk, and like however you like? Are you on a ladder? Like,
Well, for this piece, because I had to do it without the like kind of typical aids for mural artists, like the projection where you can trace it out.
Yeah.
I did chunk it out and just like lots of measuring. So like, okay, like 6 inches from this, you have to go like 30 inches up, and then this is where the U starts, and then like
wow, it's very technical.
very
Oh my
technical. It was funny that
Artists doing math.
yeah,
Watch
for
out.
real.
That's another level.
A lot of math. So super technical, but yeah. So I chunked it out, and the mural itself, I think it had about 7 or 8 total words on it, kind of like one big word at the top that was their brand name, and then kind of like keywords on the bottom to kind of express their brand name. And so I started with the biggest one, and what I actually did was I stenciled it out. So I printed on regular printer paper, just like tiled out the design that I had done on my iPad, and then pasted it onto really thick paper and then X-Acto knifed it out. And I spent the whole weekend doing that.
Wow.
Yeah. So that I could make sure that that top logo, that top word was like perfect for the top. And I didn't have to worry about freehanding because I knew it was going to be out of my reach, like literally. Like it was like going to be like way up here. And I was like, I can't freehand if I'm reaching that high. So
Wow, there's like so many technical things to think about that I never would have thought about.
for sure, yeah.
So doing this, so this is the muraling and the lettering is kind of like what you're going for as like your niche, right? Like, is that kind of like your overall, I guess the brand that you're trying to create, or are you still looking to do work like that and then other stuff on the side? I guess like how do you kind of establish and move that forward?
Yeah.
Aside from just doing it.
So I would say at first I did struggle with that kind of identifying like what are my offerings? What should I focus on? And I learned pretty quickly in those 4 months that I started that like my brain was all over the place because I'm like, oh, I can do this and I can do this and like I can make t-shirts and I can also do motion graphics and like I could also do branding. And I'm like, no, you have to like, I learned pretty quickly that it's a lot easier to pick one thing, flesh that out, and then maybe slowly move on to the next thing. So right now, what I am picking to focus on my attention is the mural aspect. And then the lettering kind of goes hand in hand with that and then fleshing that out as well as I kind of go along.
Interesting.
So, can you tell me like a particular time that you might have, messed up or was a struggle, and how you kind of learned from that, and how you applied that to going forward?
Let's see. Well, I guess yeah.
And it could be from like any aspect. If it's like more technical and how you go about setting up your mural, or just how you brand
Business,
yourself,
yeah.
business side of things,
Yeah.
how you talk to clients, how you negotiate, all that stuff.
For sure. I mean, like everyday mistakes on every end because like this is all very new for me. So like, but learning every day, I would say like to kind of go talk a little bit more about that one, like mural. That's a tongue twister. So the challenging aspect of that kind of was like an oh shit moment was when, they said, okay, you have I think it was 2 days. And then, the time was ticking and I was maybe not halfway done. And it was definitely starting to get to that, like the event starting in like 3 hours. And I'm just like,
Oh God.
shit, like I need to get this done. And so like the mistake being there that like I could have chunked out my time a little bit more efficiently, but the solution being like, okay, trust yourself, trust your hand. You can freehand this, you can do this, like you can make adjustments. And like in the end, a lot of people aren't going to recognize the tiny little perfectionist mistakes that you're going to pull out, and nobody did.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, going back to that particular piece as a whole, besides the fact that you couldn't project, you couldn't grid, any of that stuff, it's like the medium of which you're painting on, or just like doing art on, I feel like is a big part of like how you do stuff, like how it sinks in, like how many layers you put in, how you create that depth and all that. How many colors were you working with? And then was it extremely difficult to to erase or go back over, or to like kind of correct on a mirror? Like it's such a weird thing to do art on.
So what I ended up doing was to kind of get a base in. I used these little chalk markers, and I've never used those before, but they're those things you just like press down, like shake it, and then you can put it on like glass. And a lot of like stores or storefronts will use it to put in their window, like, on sale, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So I actually used that to kind of just get a sketch on. And then the amount of colors I was doing, I think it was about 5 colors, but the main color was white. So it wasn't like, it was kind of like, it had like a 3D look. So the words themselves were white, and then the shadow was either blue, purple, or red, or variations of that.
Cool.
Awesome. Do you happen to have any mentors or current or past mentors that really helped you or still help you?
So in high school, I had a couple mentors through the nonprofit that I was kind of working with, and that was Arts by the People. And that was, I worked with a pastel artist. Her name is Julie Friedman. She still works in town. And so she really helped me to kind of like be more confident in my artwork. And also kind of like showing me that like she was a fine artist who actually also started as a graphic designer. And kind of the interplay between those two. So looking back, thinking about that is really informative for me now. And another one was I worked with a graffiti artist. He goes by Bisco Smith, and he does a lot of lettering, right? He goes by Bisco, yeah. He does a lot of lettering based works. And something he told me back when I was in high school, when I told him like, yeah, I'm going to go to college for graphic design. He was like, listen, that's amazing. But here's the thing. I don't want you to lose that touch with that like real feeling of painting and working, because you're really good working with your hands, and like, don't lose that. You're going to feel it when you lose it. And he was right. He was so right.
Wow, he like literally hit it right on it. Like,
no, and I thought about that, like, that was probably like, I don't know, so many years ago back in high school, but like, he was right. Super right. Yeah.
Now, for the context of our listeners and our viewers, guys, Facebook, Instagram, well, you're not on Instagram, sorry. Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. If you guys are still with us, give me a hashtag live. Let me know you're here. If you have any questions for us, feel free to chime in. Sydney's got a chock full, no pun intended, of info. If you guys want to ask her questions, leave it on social so we can get to those questions and hopefully get you guys some answers. And for our viewers and listeners, how old are you right now?
I'm 23.
23 years old.
Yeah.
And you already had a real job. You already said, fuck that job. And now you're already working for yourself. That's
she got
crazy.
through all the hard parts like real
Like,
fast.
I didn't say that.
Not wrong.
You said it, not me.
I did it for you.
Right.
So you're 23 years old. How many murals have you worked on so far?
So that's a tricky question for me to answer, because mural designs, all of the designs you see are my original designs. Actually getting up on a ladder or, getting into a space and doing a mural, I've done only 3. And I think this is actually a super interesting thing to talk about, because having 3 under my belt, it's great, but still super limiting. So as I'm trying to transform my business into more murals, it's kind of that aspect of like, oh, you can't get the job without experience, but you can't have experience without the job. Like,
I hate
We
that.
literally just talked about
Yeah.
this like on 2 podcasts.
The
in a
worst
row.
part of every 23-year-old's life.
yeah. So coming up with solutions for that has been interesting. So what I did to kind of alleviate that problem for myself was I went around and I marketed a free mural for someone in the Morristown area, or the Morris County area. And so that, winner was selected, and that's going to go through, and hopefully that brings a lot of like attention to my business and that side. Yeah.
Can you say who it was?
Yeah. It was South Street Social.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
We were there all the time.
Yeah. So
Oh, that's so funny. Like literally
yeah.
where we met.
Wow.
Full circle.
Yeah.
That's so wild. Yeah, we met Sydney at our networking event, and she was just happened to be there. She thought it was really cool. Yeah, how'd that look like for you? You found us through a Facebook ad?
I think it was either a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, or I want to say it was actually the Morristown.nj Instagram account.
Okay, great.
Shout out to Greg.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
we'll
Greg.
give you a little. All right, so you perfectly segue into something that I wanted to talk
Sure.
about, because it was one of the main reasons why I approached you to be on the podcast itself, right? So when I visited your page, I think I had your card, and I like went through everyone that we like had at the event, and the second I went on your page, you had the giveaway, and then I like started reading your captions, and I'm like, okay, like there's a difference between someone that doesn't get Instagram or Facebook, gets it, and then really understands what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And your caption alone stood out. I'm like, okay, like she knows exactly what she wants. She's obviously done this before. It makes sense that you've worked at an agency before. And then I got hit with a retargeting ad. I'm like,
You running ads?
yeah. So
What? Look
So-
at-
so-
you're a beast.
Her Instagram.
so your
page
work
says-
is great, but your social game is almost just as great as your work. So can we talk a little bit about that and how you've applied what you've learned in school? And, I don't know if they teach in school, but at your
I'm shaking
job.
my head no.
Yeah. Or if you learned it, by yourself, whether it was like Facebook Blueprint or like YouTube or whatever that may be. And how did you start to realize like that's one of the ways that you can do it? And what are the different ways that you're trying to get yourself out there right now?
Sure. So a lot first was just trial and error. And then in terms of like how to post and how to like market yourself on Instagram, I got a lot of good advice from other people doing similar things. So like people like, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know if you guys know the artist Lauren Hom or the artist Dina Rodriguez, but they both post a lot about being lettering artists and then about how to market yourself as an artist. And so following a lot along with them, really helped in figuring out like how to post, what to do. And I ended up purchasing a lot of classes from these people as kind of mentors along the way, and it's really helped. And so as advice to anybody out there who's trying to like think about, oh, what do I do? How do I do it? Like, I don't know, like look at the people that you look up to, and a lot of the times they're going to be offering like either free information or paid information, paid classes. Take it. Like, it's the best thing I've done.
Or just reach out to them and be like, hey, like I'd love to take you out for a cup of coffee or pick your brain for 5 minutes or whatever. And most people, this is like the same exact thing came up on the last podcast too. Most people are more than willing to share like their information with you, you know.
For sure.
That's very true.
And sometimes it's not as calm, cool, and calculated as it seems on the internet. They're like, yeah, just like do shit. You're like, all right,
just show up and say please and thank you.
Yeah.
Be a good person to ask.
Yeah.
I love your Instagram because it's colored perfectly, like the colors match, the designs all flow. And the big thing that it caught to me was like you have an about story that's super clean and you can just click through it and already learn everything about you as an artist. And just like it's just a great
oh, that's cool. You have an about highlight.
It's awesome. It's super
okay. I didn't
clean.
catch that.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
So like,
this is smart.
I see you.
And the repost guide is also really smart.
Oh, yeah.
So it's literally.
Look at this. This is so smart.
Oh well, that's because
So people don't steal the art and you at least get
A
credit
guide to
if they are
reposting
using
art.
it and stuff. Or like at least letting them know ahead of time, or so they can't come back to you and go, oh, I didn't know. And it's like, well, it's right there
For
on my
sure.
page.
Have you had to have that conversation with someone?
I have, but it was a chill kind of conversation. It was like just a small company like reposted one of my pieces with some edits, and I was like, hey, just want to let you know, like that's like not
Mine.
super kosher, like. And they were like, oh my god, we had no idea, like we're taking it down right away. So it was not a big deal, although I've seen from other artists way bigger deals where
Yeah.
it's like this big company and they'll still like straight up just steal your work, and it's like, hey, you're supposed to know, like don't do that.
We did photos for a band once, and I added this really cool, what do they call it? Cinematograph, right? Effect, because it was like a hippie band, and there was like a crazy pattern behind them. So it was like him playing the guitar, and it was like moving. And some agency that they were doing nonprofit work with reposted it, and I was like, yeah. They're like, well, and it was an agency that did it. I was like, don't you guys know better? Like, and I said that straight up. I was like, hey, can you guys like take that down? They're like, we'll tag you. I'm like, no. Like you could pay me for it. And then they're like, well, we'll be sure to tell the band because the band's like pretty big. I was like, okay. Like, they're like,
Trying to negotiate.
I
They're
was
like,
like,
no,
yeah.
bottom line, you didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
I made this for something else.
yeah. And it's cool sometimes, right? But like the tag definitely is, necessary, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if you're not going to get anything, the tag definitely holds a little bit of value in the grand scheme of, internet money.
Yeah, especially if it's a brand using your like artwork to promote their own brand. It's like, no, that's like literally what I get paid to do. Like you need to pay me for that.
Yeah.
But to answer your question before about the like kind of color scheme and like the cohesiveness, with my background in branding, I do have a brand guideline for myself and my work. So I try to work within that, although I feel like it does change like every 4 months because I get kind of bored. So struggling with kind of balancing that.
Do you ever run into the issue where someone's like, hey, I'd love for you to draft me up like a design or something, and you're like, great, that's gonna like, and like you don't want to scare them off with like a price or whatever. It's like, I'm gonna sit here and do work for you to do a mock-up. It's gonna cost X or whatever. I mean, I don't know your business model, but like, do you ever run into people where you're like there's like a borderline getting through the door with them where it's like,
yes, and usually those clients come from Instagram. So like what I've found in the past couple months is that like the clients that are going to be a little easier to work with, a little easier to talk about pricing, are the ones that you meet face to face. The ones that are going to be not responding as soon as you give them that quote are the ones that you meet
they found
through,
you
online who are like, oh, I saw your work, I'd love to get a quote on this, and you're like, oh great, let's talk. You send them a quote, crickets. And so that's been a learning experience for sure.
How's your follow-up game?
Follow-up game is good.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Watch out.
decent.
start berating them. guys.
Hello. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be an asshole or be annoying.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that's definitely something that's been a learning experience. Is a lot of the people, clients that you'll meet through online, Instagram, whatever, it's tricky, and that situation can go like it goes away pretty fast.
Do you find that you get more consistent work through like word of mouth versus through online, or do you find that there are people just discovering you online and going all the way through with the process and everything?
I get consistent inquiries online, but more consistent work in person. So consistently people are reaching out being like, can I get a quote? Can I, but like that usually doesn't lead to something that's substantial or consistent.
Well, because I'm sure, and I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong here, people see it and they're like, that's amazing. And like every other piece of art, they don't understand how much it takes and
Never.
costs.
Never.
So
Yeah.
like I could see a lot of tire kicking in that manner.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, I love one. They're like, you're like $1 million,
I want
and like,
one.
fuck, like, oh, it's cool. I'll just screenshot this
Yeah.
and put it on the background of my
Even
phone.
a simple logo, like people don't know, like, yeah, logos are actually like really expensive because you're gonna get all the rights to them, and people are like, oh my god, it's that much? What? And it's like, yeah, that's.
It's also
you
like,
want a brand.
literally your brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how people, even big companies, will do everything reverse, right? So
Mhm.
like, I'll open up something that costs. So online businesses, in my opinion, the logo you can go back and do.
Mhm.
Like, because you don't know if that online business isn't going to work, and you're not like say an e-commerce store, unless you're buying like $500,000 worth of product, like like to start the website, like I could see like cheaping out on the logo or just using some sort of type font. But like there's brands that are like investing like $1 million into like a restaurant or like anything. Like, yeah, we didn't have money for a logo. I'm like, or like a menu. Like that blows my mind.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
Like how many times do you like walk into like, we'll use a restaurant as an example and like look at their menu, you're like, fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. You're like, this is the one thing that everyone looks at.
Just the
like,
general devaluation of like art and an industry as a whole, and people are just being, oh, it's art, it's not as important. It's like go through a whole day not experiencing art, and you lose like books, TV,
labels.
like
Everything.
your own logo, music. You lose you have nothing to look at all day.
Well, I think it's
A lot of blank walls.
it's just like it's crazy that the investment doesn't go into that, and then it's always overlooked. Like it doesn't make any sense to.
But it is always going to be the cherry on top for that. Like sometimes that's going to make the deal for the person that you're working with. Is like that extra cherry on top of your brand looking pristine.
Well, we
It's
live in
the
a
experience. It's the vibe,
Yeah.
and like you're missing that.
but we also live in a world, right? So I always use it like as an example with my clients is that there's like our generation that's now becoming the ones with the money, right? Like so, like I'm 31. We're buying more expensive stuff, right? So like if I go on a website and two websites sell the same exact thing, and one's website is nicer, works better,
Loads faster.
cleaner,
Yeah.
you're gonna get the deal every time. I buy based on brand. That might not be everyone.
That's me too. Yeah.
But I respect the brand more than almost the product, right? So like if I go there, I'm like, sick logo. Or like you're going for coffee and like you're in a different city and you're like on Yelp and you see like a nice brand and they have like a nice wooden wall there. And like all of that stuff all comes together and it starts with the internet and your brand.
Okay.
Well, what was
Attention
funny
to
about
detail,
that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, question for you though. Do you think that you think that way because that's what you do? Like, what about
Yeah,
like?
definitely.
Do you think that like
And
for
sometimes
everyone else it's subconscious?
Maybe, right? So, but there, when we try to design stuff or like work on Facebook ads, I always call it like playing like the opposite end. You have to play devil's advocate because if you don't, then you're not seeing it from everyone's perspective, right? Even like me and Zach will go back and forth. I'll be like, what do you think about this? He's like, try purple. I'm like, whoa, like, I can't believe we didn't think of that. Or like, we always go back and forth. But you always have to remember that people aren't always thinking like you're thinking, but you definitely like it's like goes back to the argument like of good art and bad art or like good photography and bad photography. Everyone's like, it's just art. I'm like, no, like
You can tell a good and bad
There's a
photo
difference.
without knowing anything about
yeah.
photography.
And there's a mega difference and there's rights and wrongs. And sometimes you could break those rules in my opinion, but there's definitely, it's like good music and bad music. Like there's a difference. Like it's not just because you're making art that like you pass
That's
over
actually
this
a good
rule.
example because it can also come down to like, sure, music can be subjective, but how is the production value?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was recorded with
It could
one
only-
microphone,
It's like 10%
in a
subjective.
bathroom. Right. Yeah.
One of the big things about like showing off the experience, like to Dan's point, cool. You're in a coffee shop or you're in a different state or whatever, and you're looking for like a different area to actually have coffee, and you notice a coffee shop that's actually put in the work to make the place look nice, right? Now, to that point, in my mind anyway, when I see a shop that's like that, I'm like, okay, cool. They care about obviously the brand. They care about the establishment as a whole. They must 100% care about the coffee. It's like if they've done this, they must care about the actual product that I'm consuming. So the
Exactly.
coffee's gotta be at least good enough for me to try, right? It's good enough for me to have a good, possibly first impression to me make the jump. Whereas you go to any other random place, you think, okay, cool, I want coffee, and it looks like the same standard blanketed version of
The
anything.
fuck Jerry cup.
Yeah, like you know you're gonna get standard coffee because
Yeah.
you know they didn't put in the work to any other shit. So you know the product itself can't be as good as what you're. It's like this,
Even if it's the same coffee, you're still gonna think it's better.
Well,
There's that
okay, but let's play
experiment for
devil's
sure,
advocate
yeah.
here, right? But there's like those hole in the wall places that have they could
Of
literally have
course.
nothing. Like,
Of course.
like the Spanish place in Morristown, no menu, nobody speaks English. You walk in, you point at shit, it's the best food ever.
but you have to be willing to make that first step.
Yeah, well,
And like that first step is really hard to do when like the establishment looks like there's possibly a rat crawling behind them.
Well,
Yeah,
it's even just like they've done the experiment where they've given people, like strangers on the street, like two kinds of water, and it's like New York tap water and Dasani, and they tell everybody, they package up the New York tap water and make it look super pretty and everything,
Yep.
and they put the tap water in like, or they put the Dasani in like a little cup, and they're like, here, this tap water is like super fancy new brand. How does it taste? And everyone's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Totally valid for sure.
yeah, and it's like,
what do they call that? Like,
Blind test?
imposter syndrome? What is it? What is it's like
placebo.
placebo.
No,
Yeah.
kinda,
What's
yeah.
imposter syndrome?
I don't know.
I don't
Did you
fucking-
make that up?
No, dude, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's probably
You've heard of
really
it?
far off.
Yeah, I think so. It's when you feel like, I mean, I'm gonna butcher this, but like it's when you feel like you're in an industry and you don't belong there, basically.
Ah,
Like
there
you're
you
not
go.
good enough.
Completely wrong. The
you
water was in the wrong place.
But yeah, also placebo, sure.
All right, so we got sidetracked. Let's talk about your advertising and what you've been doing. So like your retargeting ads, like do you run any other ads to like get people's interest, stuff like that?
I mean, I'm actually surprised that that we're talking about it right now because I had no idea that it was working. To some degree, so I've only run a couple. The one being for the free mural, and that was to generate, people to sign up for that. And which is eventually, like a lead magnet, goes into a funnel, all of that. But
Where are they going once they click? Are they going to like some sign up form,
so you mean like while they're signing up for the mural,
or like so they see the ad,
Mhm.
right, and like they click on it?
Mhm.
Where do they go?
that ad would be clicking to the sign up form for the mural?
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so like there, it's like a direct, and is it a Google form or on your website?
Squarespace form. They
Okay.
have like a built-in one.
Cool.
Although I'm not sure I'll use it again.
So do you have a plan to advertise to those people and feed them content after?
It was like kind of a loose plan. I'm thinking now like it could be one of two things. One, talking to these people, knowing that they have an interest in these murals, and then being able to get them discounts, which might allow them to move forward because they did apply with the mindset of getting a free mural. So a discount might be something that they can, feel like they can latch onto, and that will be the thing to move forward. At first, my idea was just that like, oh, great, they're, new leads. But, that next idea kind of came after that.
Got it. One thing I would recommend is keep all your emails.
Mhm.
It's like the number one thing that
yeah.
like works, and a lot of people don't like. I have an email list, but it's like not that big. Keep it and grow it, and
Mhm.
grow as long as you can because that's very valuable information.
For sure.
I was gonna ask you, your style is very unique to you. It's very cool. It's very different. It looks like a weird. I'm gonna go on a limb here.
Go for it.
It's like a retro but new at the same time.
I love this Tame Impala artwork.
Oh, thank you.
Wait, what'd you just call it?
No, she's got like a Tame Impala, right? Is that, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So I did a.
Oh, there you go.
I did
Yeah.
a mock-up album cover for
Love
Tame
it.
Impala, and that goes back to the make the work that you want to get hired to do. That would be awesome. First of all, shout out. But yeah, so that was a mock-up piece. What was your question?
Your style, where'd it come from? Like, do you have any influence from anyone else that you look at, or you have like some kind of hybrid? Because you also have like, I don't want to say hippie, but definitely like retro style look, and then you
Yeah.
have like these cool polygons and like circles and like really hard edges. So it's very detailed. I love the look. It's a cool look.
Yeah. So I would say a lot of it kind of goes back and forth. So a lot I was getting inspiration from other lettering artists to begin with, but then as it kind of evolved, and I think lots of people will find that with iteration and with like going over and over and over, you start doing things with your work that you didn't even recognize that you were drawn to begin with. And so for me, that was a lot of like early, 70s psychedelic rock posters.
That's exactly what I'm getting from this.
So yeah, a lot of the influence came from that, and then kind of like, tying it back to the modern work that I'm seeing other artists doing that I like, and kind of finding a way to like put those together in a way that I find interesting and new.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love this.
Yeah, I love the clean lines.
Thank you.
Do you do a lot of this in Illustrator, Photoshop? What's the go-to program?
My preferred program is Procreate, and that's
iPad
on the
Pro.
iPad, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also use Fresco from time to time as well. But yeah, mostly iPad, and then editing all on Photoshop. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any grand visions for like what's the biggest mural? Like would you ever like think about like I want to be like the biggest mural ever like somewhere?
I don't know. Okay, so biggest mural ever, that sounds really exhausting, first of all. I think I need to like go to the gym more to do that. But like right now my focus is really like, so everything feels like it's going in the time that it should be for myself. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I really just wish I was further along and, a famous artist and like doing really well and everyone wanted murals from me. But at the same time, it's like every time I get to that next step in my business, I do feel that little bit of overwhelm of like, oh my God, now what? Like they actually want this from me. They want, my work. They want to see, my murals. But so it feels like.
Is that your phone?
It feels like it's going at the right pace. So to think like, thinking big and thinking grand like that, it's a bit intimidating at this point. Like, I don't think I could see myself doing like huge, large scale murals yet, but I would love to work with some like bigger companies in the future for sure. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So I also noticed too, like you are these like coffee shops that you have work in, or are these like mock-ups of things that you want to do?
Yeah. So everything that I would say most of the things that you see on my site right now is pretty much mock-ups.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because these are really cool.
Is the one with the brown couch a mock-up?
Yeah.
Because it looks real.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
really
so
you like
Photoshop
Photoshop
skills?
that bad?
You
in it?
Photoshop them out? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got like texture and stuff, so it
Yeah.
looks more real than the other mock-ups.
Wow.
You could literally go to a coffee shop or something and be like, let me work for you. This is what you could look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's cool.
Just got those Photoshop skills though.
Oh yeah.
These are dope.
Thank you.
Because I keep thinking that they're real and that you did these, but like you obviously could.
That's
do those.
good marketing.
Yeah.
That's exactly the.
You're like the perfect hybrid of like entrepreneur, marketer, artist. Like you're a triple threat.
Working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, every day is terrifying in all of those aspects, especially the business aspect, which I'm extremely new to. And again, they don't teach you that in school. And a business minor would have been extremely helpful, but I don't know if they would have covered anything creative related. But yeah, so everyday learning, yeah.
So I'm just reading the comment from Greg, Morristown.nj. Where is this in Morristown? Come on, dude.
Commented back,
Yeah, I know. Greg, you're the king of Morristown. You should know this if it exists or not,
Yeah.
He's like, I never seen that before. I need to view that. I need to document.
Yeah.
Tagging as like, designer in Morristown.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily,
Yeah. So is there anyone online that you follow that you look up to? That's not necessarily like a mentor, but someone that you follow for inspiration, or like a podcast that you listen to?
Yeah, so for murals and the business side of murals, I follow this company of these two girls. Their business is called Pander. It's Pandr. And I kind of look to them for any kind of the business side of murals, because they're really on top of their game, and they're also really on top of their game of giving that information to others, knowing that it's extremely valuable and that nobody else is giving this information. And they have like the tricks of the trade, and they're like, here, we've got it. If you want it, here it is. So I find that to be really helpful. I follow along with Lauren Holm. I think I mentioned her before. And with her, it's more of the business side of being a lettering artist and kind of working on your own as a freelancer. And then I did do that class from Molly Jakes, and so I follow along with her work as well. And that's more about, the business side of being a freelancer as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you been to Asbury Park, I'm assuming?
I've been there, yeah.
Okay. So you know that there's like I don't know, like 70 murals all around
Oh
town.
yeah.
Have you approached anyone there trying to do one? Because it doesn't seem necessarily easy, but they seem like they're very open to it.
Yeah.
They're, like,
No, not
redoing
yet,
the
but
whole
it's on
boardwalk.
the list for sure. I was to prepare listening to some of your other ones, and it was the one with
Bunny.
Bunny. Yeah.
Yeah.
She mentioned Asbury Park, and I was like, look it up.
Yeah, yeah. So all the murals in Asbury are really awesome. She did a piece there. I haven't seen it. Have I seen it in person? I think I saw it in person. But yeah, it's Asbury Park or Morristown. Go to Asbury Park.
Yeah.
Check it out. Bunch of music venues, art and stuff. Then like come back up here.
Yeah. But I would love, Morristown, let us do some outdoor murals. Come on. But yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Oh, it'd be pretty cool. Sterling Tavern is opening up like that upper level area.
I keep hearing about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool if you like did like a who's the guy that did the painting on like the ceiling? What's the famous dude? Not Van Gogh, right?
Michelangelo?
the
Angelo.
Sistine
Yeah. What if you like Michelangelo the thing and like did like something above? Like
Yeah.
that'd be kind of cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, John, hit her up.
Yeah,
We see you, son.
she's dope.
Yeah, you're probably not watching. It's okay.
It's okay. We'll tag him later. I was gonna ask you. Oh yeah. So going back to when you made this big jump to go on your own, was there anyone like close to you, family, friends, anybody at all that said like, "You're fucking crazy. Like, why would you do this?"
Yes.
So how did you overcome that, and like, what that look like? Because that's like a lot of pressure,
Yeah. Well, first of all, one was kind of like, I've always been the type of person to make a game plan. No matter what decision or what route I go, I'm going to have a game plan and I'm going to have a fallback. So I knew, like, all right, I have this money saved up. Going to move back in with my parents because I don't want to lose all that money. And then I also knew that if everything kind of fell apart, I could go and get another agency job. So kind of like lining all of those things up to fall back on. And then it wasn't so much about convincing those around me that, like, I'm doing the right thing. Like, when it comes down to it, the people who love you should support you in your decisions. That should be the way it goes. But I think over time it was less about like convincing and more about proving.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and what's great is that you have really good work. So like, you go to any agency and they're looking somewhat like, hey, like, what's up?
Yeah.
They're like, all right, like, there's a computer over there.
I feel like you yeah.
Hop on that computer. Cool.
Yeah.
Like I got what it takes. I already have a huge portfolio.
I was about to say you could just open up your Instagram page and just be like, yep, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of the things too. Is like I wasn't worried about necessarily like leaving this job and then being like, oh my God, I'm never gonna find a job again. Like I knew that my skills were enough that like I could find another job if necessary. Like the work I was doing at the agency, the ads that they were running for this brand that I was working on were ads that were making like Facebook charts. I don't know how to describe it. It was like 19% or 19-point recall in Facebook ads that was like making the Facebook news or something like that. So I was like, I know that this is doing good and doing well, and like, I can take this anywhere I go.
Cool. Do you ever look at any walls and think, damn, I can put some
Always, always, yeah.
Have you reached out to anyone like kind of like randomly in that sense?
I'll straight up just go into like a coffee. I did this the other day where I was just like in a coffee shop and I was like, hey, is your manager here? Like I always try to do that nicely because they're like, oh, what do I do? Like,
My coffee's cold.
Yeah.
I got a cold brew. Fuck.
I kind of be like, oh, is your manager around? Like, I'm a mural artist. I'd love to, I see this like gorgeous wall you have here. Like, if you
Very nice wall.
Look, I am not kidding. I did that the other day, and the guy was really nice. He was like, oh, you know what? I've been looking for someone to paint my dog on this wall. I was like, cool. Yeah. All right.
I can do that.
Can we write dog?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I laughed. What the fuck was this?
How much does you said you're into what's the letter? What's the
Lettering.
lettering?
Yeah.
Now, me coming from no design background really at all, besides like self-taught shit. How much does that play into like typography? And did you take any like typography classes?
Oh yeah. So I could just dive into that for sure. So having my main part of my education being graphic design, a lot of that was focused on typography, and I think why I like focused on lettering later on was because I had such a strong pull towards typography. So in school, a lot of my projects were very type forward. So like big, like liked using big, bold text, like any way to make the type the center of the show, and maybe sometimes making it illustrative. So like being able to take words and form them into other things or make them stand out on their own for more than their meaning. So, you know, if you're scrolling in Instagram, you know, you're like, all right, like the difference between an ad that has just the words and their information, and then the words and it has information, but the first thing you notice is that you're going to stop and look at it and be like, this is freaking beautiful. That's the one you're going to read. So that's why I like typography, and then that translates itself to lettering, because lettering is kind of more of an illustrative typography where you have total control over the composition and the font per se.
Got it.
And how that's going to look.
Have you watched the Netflix special? The one that's the design series, and it like it's like documentaries, and like one's about the guy who like invented Air Jordans, and the other one's about the guy who invented like almost every font ever, and his agency just makes fonts. If you haven't, you should watch it. It's awesome. He like created the font that like Obama used on his campaign flyer, and now every campaign flyer after that, because it was so clean, like they want to use it. So like every like politician uses it, and like most of the fonts that exist, like he himself created or his agency created.
That's insane, yeah.
And like they were going into like the murals and the how some like letters are wider because
anatomy of fonts.
Because like they're wider visually, but it's like an illusion, so they have to make it, or like the S hangs over more, but when you look at it, it doesn't. But if you put a ruler next to it,
got your X height, your Y height.
It was so cool.
Ascenders, descenders, the whole anatomy of a font.
I was like stuck to the TV for like a straight hour. It was super cool.
Most people would not be.
Yeah. Well, I love
that's
that.
That's just an us thing.
That once again stands out. Like you know, we'll do like have other people do design work. I'm like, no. Like we have to like, this needs to be looking different. Like you need to slam the words like together. Like that matters.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And making it like not just that thing that you like just like plug and play. Like it needs to be different now. Like you're scrolling all the time. Like what's gonna stand out nowadays? And that's the important thing. Is just like if we can make this type still maybe relate to your brand, and then elevate it to the level that someone's now going to pay attention, even if maybe you didn't get like the most expensive branding agency to do your brand. You know, like how can we do that, and how can we make that work for you?
Yeah. Very cool.
Have you ever considered or have already done murals in a way that were not on like something like a wall, but something that was still big, but something you could take with you, like a giant poster or a giant like piece of canvas?
Yeah, but I think in my mind I thought of those as more just paintings.
Well, true.
I'm glad you said something.
Definitely a painting. But have you done like have you done those
Like
and like
mini-
tried?
She looked at you. She's like, I think that's a painting.
It is a painting,
Like
but it's still
mini
kind of a
murals,
mirror, like a really giant like painting. I guess is like what I'm looking for.
The biggest painting.
Like just for like practice purposes, or like just anything to like do something, because like, you know, like finding a mural or doing the mural thing seems like it's challenging, or like at least finding a blank wall that someone wants you to actually like
so
doctor
I
up,
get
you know?
what you're saying. So to answer that question, I've also been looking into like freestanding walls, and that's also a good option for people who can't like paint on because whatever rent agreements and stuff,
Sure.
or your town like ours won't allow outdoor murals. Freestanding murals are a great option. Shade, so much shade. And that's also something that I've been looking to practice on is, and that'll allow me as it gets warmer to kind of like, maybe I can spend my weekends painting outside and practicing, and you kind of use that freestanding mural. And I think that's like, usually they're like wall dividers basically. And that would be probably,
that
you know
makes
what I'm
more
saying?
sense.
Like,
Yeah.
those things, like you put it in the middle of the office to split up the room, but it's like instead of, you know, corkboard, it's made of wood.
Yep.
Have you ever been to I don't know what they technically call it, but in New Brunswick, where you can paint on like the entire water side, and it's like more for graffiti?
No, I haven't.
You should go there and paint.
Okay, yeah.
But you might have to like get
really
like
good spot.
security guards so nobody paints over it if you like can't finish it in one day.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, but we did a video there, and one of our like first videos, maybe.
I think it was maybe the first video ever.
One of our friends did a really cool piece of art. Shout out to Sammy. But yeah, it's like a wall that they let you paint. It's a little sketchy down there, so you definitely want to bring like a bunch of
friend.
people.
Yeah.
But all right, so what else do we got here?
I'm seeing if anyone on Facebook has any questions.
Anyone on Facebook Live, hit the comment button, comment hashtag live, comment a question, hit the hearts, hit the thumbs up button, hit the laughy button, whatever. Laughy button?
Laughy, haha, the haha button.
The haha button. Shit. Leave us a review, please.
Yeah, let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, if you leave us a review, so what we'll do is shoot us a comment, a DM on Instagram if you leave us a review, like with the screenshot of it, and we will mail you some stickers because, who doesn't like stickers?
And we just got some holographic stickers coming in.
Oh, exclusive. Only 50 made.
So
it's like a holographic Charizard, only
yeah.
with an owl.
So the
not
better,
a cat.
So
not
the
a
better
cat.
review you leave, the better chance you have of getting a better sticker.
Yeah. Yep. Heard that.
Trade them for other holographic stickers.
Yeah.
Finish
Ooh.
your collection.
Wow.
I like
a
that
little
idea.
Blastoise action.
There you go.
It's gotta be Japanese holographic, or I'm not in.
All right. So
Are we on the rapid fire idea?
I don't know. I feel like we've asked everything. By the way, anyone that's starting a podcast, don't think that we're just that good at this. We read. Sometimes we have an outline.
So if we do go crazy off topic, we
Yeah.
somehow find our way back.
Is there anything that you wish you knew when you started? Even though you're very,
very new at this, but I would say if you have a gut feeling about something, listen to that. Even if you decide to go the other direction and ignore it, like make a note of it because it'll come back around. So like that gut feeling that I'm talking about when I went into graphic design, and I don't regret that at all. I think that's exactly what got me to the place I am today and allows me to have the entire range of skills that I have. But that gut feeling going into it of like, well, don't you think you'll lose touch with like that hand done stuff and that hand done feeling? Yeah, it was true. I did.
What are some of the we kind of already talked about this as a whole, but what's like the greatest challenge that you think that you're facing right now moving forward? Just like what's the thing that either scares you the most or you feel is like keeping you from the next level, or is just like that little thing of self-doubt? Like what's the hardest thing?
I'm a textbook introvert. So really like hopping on those sales calls and like talking to people, cold calling, cold emailing, making those connections is a new territory for me. Like it's something I'm building slowly, but like, this week I've been on like plenty of calls where I'm just kind of like, what I'll do is I'll outline the whole conversation, how I think it's going to go beforehand so that I don't like mess it up. But yeah, no, just kind of like getting used to like talking to people, making those connections and being brave enough to like just go up to people and talk to them.
cool. That was a good question. I like that.
Putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's hard.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest challenges I think any creative trying to like make a name for themselves.
The funniest thing about it is that so much opportunity just comes from talking to people and just asking. And like somebody, like someone said before, like you think that there's like a specific way that things have to get done, but so much of it is just literally going up to someone and being like, "Can I paint on your wall?" And they might say yeah, and then it might just get in front of the right person who's like, "Hey, I need you to paint on like 6 more walls."
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you find it hard to price yourself?
Pricing myself, that was the first thing that I outlined in like, all of everything. So I didn't want to have that to be like a struggle that if a client came to me and was like, "Oh, can you give me a quote?" Like I didn't want to spend like hours pacing, like being like, "Oh, I don't know. Like my experience tells me nothing."
Why?
So in the class I was taking, there was some good advice for that, and that was to, get the the Pricing and Ethical Guidelines Handbook for Graphic Designers, and I think it's by Graphic Artists Guild. And so that was a big help. And then a couple other handbooks that I'd like kind of found in some internet searches. And then really just kind of like setting that out and then having that be one of the first things I did after I, got my LLC together. Getting all that together so that it could just be like plug and play. Like I don't have to think about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you paid or not, if someone asks you to not sign it, what would you say?
To not sign it.
Like to not mark it.
I would say that I'm still working on that. I haven't had that happen yet, but there's an extra fee for not signing it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it's
Hold
like
on. Hold on.
it's like giving away like the raw footage or whatever. It's like there's if you want it and you
Yeah.
don't want my name on it, then fine. Like it's an extra. Blah,
Well,
blah.
giving away the
Exactly.
raw footage is a little bit different. It's saying, well, I like your work, but I'm going to hire someone else to edit the rest of the stuff that I actually
Yeah.
wanted. So
Well, true, but at the same time, it's like you're getting your hands away from it. It's essentially is like the idea. When you tag it, do you tag usually with your @
Yeah, at Sydney Prusso.
now you can never change it.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I can never change my name anyway. Well, I could, but
Fair. Any other questions, Jake? Since you're the new guy here,
Oh, I'm the new guy.
we're leaning on
spot.
you. Yeah, yeah, dude.
Oh man. No, I got nothing.
Wow.
I'm so interested, but we talked about like everything.
We did.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off though.
Oh, go ahead. No,
You good?
yeah, go ahead.
Do you plan on ever maybe possibly collaborating with someone or not necessarily collaborating with someone in a mural, but also that, but like maybe, I don't know, someone in a different field that would maybe you guys would be able to feed off of each other or something like that?
I could totally see that happening, especially with like possibly collaborating with like an interior designer like to totally transform a space if that was what was on the agenda, or working with other mural artists to get a job done faster, or working with a branding agency to flesh out the last bits of the brand and get that event up. So yeah,
Have
definitely.
you emailed any interior designers?
No, I have not, because this was a thought I had yesterday.
Wow.
I have a list for you. I can give
Oh,
you.
great, yeah.
I don't know how accurate it is, but just shoot them an email.
Cool.
Like
Awesome. Love it.
Have you ever thought about like just walking into places that like just opened or like just renovated something, like a hotel or like a new like residence place where there's like a lobby and like like you got a lobby. I want to be like I want to make you the coolest like accent wall ever.
Yeah.
Because I think that's like also a really cool space to be in is like hotels,
Oh yeah.
like that area.
Well,
Real estate and hotels is big in murals.
And what's cool about what's happening with our, I guess, the general design and the way people are going, it's like you walk into a new hotel or restaurant now and it's like trendier. Like they want to be trendier. They want to have cool chandeliers. They want to have chairs that look cool but don't feel that great.
They want to have that Instagrammable moment.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Co-working space
like
is
rest-
also a good spot.
like restaurants though. Like they have items on the menu that just like they're made to look cool.
Yeah.
Like they
for
taste
sure.
good too, but they
They're
like
for the photos. Yeah.
Yep. So
Instagrammable pieces. They don't taste that great, but they look really great on Instagram.
For sure.
You have so much of a log of like items and designs you've already done. Is there any way to like monetize that just to like a point where you can sell them off to people and be like, hey, this design is finished and I can license it to you or something?
Yep.
Or
So I've had inquiries for licensing before, and that's definitely an avenue that I can go down, is licensing the pre-existing artwork.
Now you also said too that you got into like creating like t-shirt designs.
Yeah.
Did that like last? Did you have like a little like Etsy account that like lets you do that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's a fun, interesting sidebar. So like when I first left my job, for some reason I was like, I'm just gonna make t-shirts, and I don't know why. Like I had a plan.
every
but
business owner
Yeah.
starts off making t-shirts.
Like, I don't-
This is a theory I have
Does
that like if
does
you're
have
trying
to
So
do-
far-
if
so
you're
far we're
trying to
on the way.
hustle, like you're like, all right, like you could kind of like it's like the path to entrepreneur.
That makes me feel less bad about it, because
Yeah.
I feel like I got totally sidetracked by it, and it just took me and was just like, you make t-shirts, and I was like, okay, but I didn't like. It was just kind of like, now what? But yeah, so I did do that for a little bit, and it was like a line of t-shirts and posters, and those are on my website. Yeah, and I have a link to my shop on there.
Do you do print on demand or do you have stock?
Yeah, I do print on demand.
You use Printful?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So do we.
Yeah, they fuck up a lot of stuff though, so make
Oh,
sure you follow
really?
up with your customers.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't have it on
Nope.
his sweatshirts. Like if you really look at it, it's so bad.
Oh, shit.
Bastards.
We had to send it back like twice, and they still messed it up. Shout out to Printful, sponsor this podcast, and stop fucking up our shit, dude.
Get your QA control better.
All right, we got 5 people watching on Facebook Live. Which 5 of you are going to leave a comment right now with a question for Sydney?
Oh.
Calling you out. I see it. I see the little eyeball. 6. I see 6
6.
now. Someone's got something.
Who's gonna do it? Do you have any particular city that you want to see your work in?
City. I mean, any city would be good. But like,
Ambitious. I
yeah,
like
I would
it.
start with any city because again, I'm at that beginning stage where just like I want to just like get my work out there. But ideally, you know, I'd love to do some work in like San Diego or LA would be really cool. Yeah, I love going out west.
Morristown.
Yeah, just that.
Who do we have to talk to get that done?
I don't know, but if anyone
Morristown
knows,
Partnership?
Well, I know Morristown Partnership. I could hook you up with them, but I
Yeah.
don't know if they like control the walls. But
yeah, I'm not sure. My issue is that every time like I dive into looking it up, it just ends up being so that they have the definition of murals in their like pamphlets, and it's just one note of murals, and then they go into signage, and then signage is defined differently, and that has a whole list of regulations that it can only be like 16 by 16 feet,
How
or maybe
about-
even less, but
How about billboards?
billboards, yeah, they have regulations on that too.
But like, have
They
you
said
thought
no
about like
billboards.
making like designing a billboard?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that I've thought of less because that goes back into like taking away the handicraft of it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's definitely an avenue that can be explored.
Because I feel like, you know, like again, you're very type or letter focused, and like
Either word
obviously,
works, yeah.
obviously billboards are all kind of the same way. And you have a really interesting design. It's a big piece. It's kind of like a mural.
they're temporary and expensive as fuck, dude.
I know.
No one's like, yo, like we could have made $5,000 on this month, but you know what? We'll put your
Yeah.
painting up. Like
For sure.
imagine pitching that. Like
I don't know. Imagine, but
unless
it's
you
just
pay
cool.
for it,
Yeah.
just go
For
out there
sure,
with a
yeah,
money
that's what I'm
gun.
doing.
I got a question. Do you feel like your education was worth it? Because I know
Oh,
a lot of artists kind of debate whether they should go to school for music or graphic design or art or whatever. Do you feel like you got either your money's worth or just like an experience that was worthwhile out of it?
So I think it's kind of hard to say because it's like, you know, hindsight's 2020. You know, like I'm looking back and like, okay, would I have been able to think in that way? Would I have been able to hone those skills on my own? And I think for me personally, there are a lot of skills that I would have just done on my own anyway, like I'm doing right now. Like didn't learn any of the business side of anything, didn't learn necessarily how to make money off of artwork, not in an agency setting or having a full-time job. But there's certain things that it's like the discipline, the sticking to it, the aspects of branding. And I think you're going to run into a couple teachers here and there who are like, who really make it worthwhile for you. So I think for me, it was worth it. Some people though, like their opinion's going to be, it wasn't worth it. And I can see that side as well.
One more opinion about it. Do you think that it's really important for everybody to try to jump into one of those full-time kind of corporate settings either immediately after college, or do you think that there's a lot of valuable experience to be had in working for a corporation or a larger company at least at some point, or do you think that there's a little bit more value in really just investing in yourself up front and like going full force on selling yourself as an individual?
I think it helped me immensely. One, in figuring out, if anything, just it's not what I wanted to do right now. Maybe it'll be later, but you know, having that experience of knowing what it's like and what I might get myself into in the future, in working with agencies, even on my own, or just like, you know, maybe that's not a revenue or an avenue that I want to pursue anymore. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it is important, even if it's just for a couple months. For me, I think it also really helped with the marketing aspect because it was a marketing agency that I was working for. I got to see the whole flow of, you know, going from ideation to production to like releasing a product or a brand. And that was super helpful for getting the inside workings of everything. You don't get that at school, is seeing the inside workings. You kind of just like make a project and then it's like present it next week. Like that's
Yeah.
it. But seeing the inside workings is like, it's way more complicated than just like, oh, next week it's due.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing that I saw you do, and Jake brought it up on your Instagram, is you kind of explain. Let me actually go back to it real quick. In your highlight, you're like about me,
Mhm.
right? And your about me goes into, you know, who you are, you know, what your lettering work is about, like what it looks like, how you do custom murals. And then you have a guide to like reposting your work, which is great, right? Have you considered coming up, and you actually already did a post about this, 5 reasons why your company needs a mural, It's a great post. I love this idea. And I was gonna ask, have you ever thought about like showcasing or highlighting like your process in working with a business and like, because like I think if you highlighted essentially the customer journey of like what it's like, hey, like when I work with any kind of brand, I wanna make sure that I'm tying in the elements of what that brand is, your story, the feeling, the emotion you want to get out of this, and like your colors, and because like even in some of your mock-ups, like I see like there's like orange chairs, so like you incorporated orange into your art, so it flows. Like you have an interior design mind as well, which is interesting. Have you ever thought about, or have you already created content around helping businesses or brands understand what it's like to work with you?
Yeah, so I would absolutely love to kind of start fleshing out more of the customer journey. I think that's something that's going to be up and coming in that, like I said, being kind of like new to this, having, getting clients and working with new clients, getting used to that customer journey myself is going to be a key element to showcasing it for the public. But yeah, that's absolutely something that eventually down the line I want to be able to show. But it's going to start with getting used to it myself. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited to see, because if I can see your art in more places, like even like Taqueria just opened, and their place is really cool. It's really interesting. There's a lot of different things on the wall. Like I think there's a room for a mural
For
there.
sure.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I mean, they have a couple of murals on their walls. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So I'm also curious to see, like, I don't know, because your work, from what I've seen anyway, is better than what I've seen really anywhere. It's really unique, really different, has a whole different vibe. I love it.
Do you ever do like chalkboards? Like if someone were request it?
No.
Okay.
Not about it.
Nah, not my thing. I don't know why. It's just not my thing.
Because like some of them are pretty cool. Like.
Nah.
Not feeling it.
I don't know. Truly, I think it's just having to do with like, it's not, if it was a chalkboard with a central focus where it's like, you have the main words and then you have something, basically I like doing things that have one thing that you're trying to get across and like working towards that aim. I think the idea behind like chalkboard murals, that's definitely a way that I could go into that if I just wanted to make, a quick buck, but like, I don't know if that would be creatively interesting to me because you're making lists.
You're making lists.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Fair. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to move over to, there's like a fun section we have down to kind of end the podcast. And was just curious real quick, where are you from?
I'm from Morristown.
So you were born in Jersey?
No, so I was born in Maryland, and I had some of my childhood in Pennsylvania, but I moved to Morristown middle school and high school. I spent here.
Interesting. All right, what part of Maryland?
I think I was born in Silver Springs, Maryland, but I was like, I don't remember that. I was just born there.
I actually lived there for a year in Hagerstown, some small town.
Okay, yeah.
Hated the place. Don't want to ever go back. All right. So I like to fire this question off because it's a very Jersey thing to ask.
Okay.
Taylor ham or pork roll?
Taylor ham.
Okay. All right. I'm conflicting with you there.
Okay.
And
Where are you from?
No, just from the idea, because like Taylor ham is the brand. Pork roll is like the real thing.
Okay. Well, I disagree.
All right, fine. Taylor ham's also longer to say technically. It's Taylor ham.
But it sounds like it would taste better.
I guess you're right.
Yeah, a roll of pork.
A roll of pork doesn't really sound as intriguing.
It's an extra syllable of flavor.
It is.
Taylor ham kind of like.
I love that.
Taylor ham kind of like throws its hair behind its shoulders, like Taylor ham. Yeah.
Fucking Taylor ham.
Okay.
Dude.
Okay. All right.
Sounds like it could be like a famous football player too.
Oh, it does actually.
Taylor ham.
Taylor ham. He's going down. Water parks or like amusement park, like a roller coaster. But why don't I say the difference? How do you say the difference?
Ice cream or ice cream shop?
You know what I mean? Like roller coasters or like water parks?
Roller coasters, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Immediately it goes to like, probably less germs because, less in the water. But then I'm like, probably not any less germs. Yeah.
Probably
Yeah, good
more.
point.
I feel like you sweat out more fear onto the bars. That everyone's holding on.
That's actually really funny. If you had to choose between one medium to write on, what kind of wall would it be? What's your perfect wall?
Drywall.
Drywall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. We have one of those.
Cool. Yeah.
It's right there.
That's the easiest one to paint on. Yeah.
What is one of your favorite artists?
One of my favorite artists is definitely Gemma O'Brien. She's another lettering artist, and she does some really cool psychedelic kind of looking murals as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a fan of street art?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I went to this, what do you call it? Not a gallery. It was like a pop-up thing, Beyond the Streets. Did you hear about it?
No.
It was pretty cool. It was like all different street artists there, and they had like Shepard Fairey and like, have you ever heard of Space Invader?
Haven't.
Okay, you should check them out.
Cool.
Well, Shepard Fairey is Obey.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, but Space Invader is really cool because he like takes like tiles and puts them together to make like Space Invader type looking things, but sticks them on like random buildings. I've seen one in Miami, and then he put up a piece of pizza that's like the size of this TV right as you drive into the Holland.
Yeah.
So like
It's
I was like
it's before you
bugging
get there.
when I saw it. I was like, that's definitely Space Invader. That's like, it was really cool to
That's
see.
cool.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's even more weird now is that the pizza's gone, kind of like it's chipped, like someone either chipped it away or someone did, and now
Oh yeah,
like
I've definitely seen this. Now that you're talking, yeah.
yeah, and now the crust is
Space
left.
Invader.
Yeah.
Which is, have you noticed that?
Yeah, yeah, it's
like
fucked
it's
up.
like just the crust. It's like someone ate the pizza and left the crust.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
Thoughts on Banksy? Overrated or like brilliant artist? Or meh?
I don't know. I don't really think. I feel like, do you? You know, no thoughts. No thoughts on Banksy. Yeah,
Okay, have you seen his documentary?
I haven't. No.
You should watch it.
Okay.
It's called Exit Through the Gift Shop, as like a pun on galleries and museums.
All right. Yeah.
I never realized that until I like really said it out loud. I was like, oh fuck, like that's kind of deep. Like Exit Through the Gift Shop.
Of course it is. It's
Yeah,
Banksy.
yeah, of course. Have you seen that, Jake?
No, I have not.
You should see it.
I
Yeah,
probably
I guess I'm a fairly big fan of Banksy.
Okay.
I think we got the book over there.
Do you like his work or his tactics of like marketing of being like
Both.
an alter ego?
And I kind of like that he always stands for something. And a lot of people would say that he sometimes stands for like shit that's like fucked up or like however they kind of foresee that. But you know, it is what it is. It's not like I mean, he kind of makes it political sometimes, but I just like love what he does.
Yeah.
He also has another documentary called 12 Days in New York City, where every 12 days he would do something different in New York City, whether it was an installation or a painting. And it's like from the perspective of like vloggers, like trying to get there first before people like destroyed it or like cut the wall down to sell it for millions of dollars. Like, dude, there was people that were like in New York City and these dudes were standing out front of it that were huge, charging people $5 to take a photo with it because they knew that nobody would do anything. And they were getting it. It's a really,
It's wild.
it's those two documentaries
Yeah,
are pretty cool.
I'll have to take a look. That
You have
sounds
mad documentaries.
Oh
to
yeah,
watch.
Yeah.
you guys gotta like write a list for me, put it on a post-it note. I'll take it home. Yeah.
Yeah. But all right, I'm out of like fun. I don't have any fun questions.
If you had to choose one food to live on, what type of food? I'm not gonna have you choose the actual one, like type.
Like food pyramid type?
No, like Italian, Indian,
Oh, Italian.
Spanish.
Yeah, I get
Okay.
easy Italian.
Yeah.
Easy.
All of the pastas. Yeah.
All the pastas,
That's
all
a
the
good
time.
choice.
Pastas.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Now I'm hungry.
Love it.
Yeah.
Favorite band or artist?
Ooh.
Like music artist.
Boom.
Tough. I don't know. That one's a tough question.
Genre. Favorite genre.
No. You gotta force people into this.
Oh, man.
Dude, not let her walk away from. Like, come on.
Okay, well, I mean,
Hit
it
us with like
fluctuates.
2 or 3.
Spotify said that my top band that I listened to this past year was Elton John, so
Okay.
I guess that one. But I don't know. Genre, is that your follow up?
Well, she's trying to get out of it again, dude. She can't.
No,
Okay.
two more artists.
Okay, so the top one's actually Elton John, Queen, and
Wow.
yeah, I'm into the oldies. Yeah.
I like Queen.
Me too.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I can't get into old music. I respect it. I just can't get into it.
Yeah. What was the third one? I definitely, obviously, you could probably tell I got more into Tame Impala this year from that mock-up. But
good.
yeah.
Do you know who Rainbow Kitten Surprise is?
No.
What? You should listen to them.
Okay.
They got me hooked on them. I've been listening to it nonstop.
Dude, they're
It's
epic.
really good.
Seriously, I need a
Really
list.
good.
I should be
Rainbow,
writing this down.
Rainbow
Okay.
Kitten Surprise is
If
epic.
you like Tame Impala, you'd like them.
Okay.
What was the name of the massive music thing that was going on in Asbury? That
See here now.
See Here Now. They Were at Sea Here Now is I didn't actually get into the show. I kind of watched it from like the back, but like it sounded great.
That's cool.
It's
All
wild.
right, yeah.
Awesome.
What was it? Kitten unicorn?
I know it's a weird. They call themselves RKS, but it's
Okay.
Rainbow Kitten Surprise.
Cool. Okay.
And trust me, when someone, this guy that used to work here, Dylan, he was like, "Yo, like you have to listen to this band. It's Rainbow Kitten Surprise." I'm like, "Dude, fuck you. Like, we're not listening to that." And they're like super talented and like weird, but not too. It's awesome.
The origin of their name's actually really interesting too.
Oh, I
If you
see. I
look
didn't.
up-
What is it?
Oh, all right,
Come on,
well,
dude. You
I
can't
won't-
just fucking say it. You got to drop some
Yeah,
knowledge.
look at,
He's like, fuck.
from the interview that I watched where they described it, they said that they had a friend who had a terrible disease, and this was back when they were all first starting up with the band, and they had an open mic coming up, and usually before open mics, like they need to announce you as like the artist coming up next, and they asked their friend who had like I guess this kind of like illness, and they were like, hey, like we need a name. What should we call ourselves? And he told them Rainbow Kitten Surprise, and they looked at him and were like, are you sure? And he's like, yep. And
Wow, that's
There you
so
go.
cool.
Wow.
That's super fucking cool.
I'll
Awesome.
find the interview and send it, so I'm not like
Yeah,
discovering it.
Yeah, cool. Very
That's cool that you thought of it like almost on the spot. It sounds like, and they're like, "All right, that's our name."
Forever.
Get
That's
out of it.
wild.
Yeah.
Forever. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Well, all right, let's wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Creative Collective Show. I'm trying to say that faster and faster every time we do this.
Creative Collective Show.
Creative Collective Show. Anyway,
Yeah.
CCS.
hit the subscribe button on any podcast podcast platform that you listen to us on. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strix Media NJ. Be sure to leave us a comment on any of our live streams and or a review on the podcast platforms. If you do, DM us on Instagram. We will send you some stickers. Maybe even a lucky person will get one of the
Holographic?
last exclusive T-shirts.
Ooh.
What about the holographic sticker?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Special.
It's a Rainbow Kitten Surprise. And check out our Facebook group. If you're a creator in New Jersey, we are up to about 1,035 members. All creators are welcome. Come collaborate. Get some constructive criticism. I can't get that out. Hire some people from there. Really connect with them. And then look out for our next networking event that doesn't exist yet, but it's probably not going to suck. So
There you go.
that's it.
Yeah, we actually met Sydney at our networking event, so it's a good excuse to go to the next one to meet fucking cool people like Sydney.
Yeah, there you go.
Then maybe you too could be on the podcast.
Ooh,
Ooh,
maybe
ready?
you too.
And then you'll get your picture taken. All right, that was cheesy.
That was bad.
Sorry, guys. That was the best thing I got. I
Jesus
got a fart. I got a fart button.
Oh
what,
my
what
God.
do you want me to do with that?
Is that we gonna end it? Oh my god! All right.
All right.
Later, guys. We love you.